I was an honor student since preschool until the last day I went to school here in the Philippines. But unlike most kids, my medals were hung by my guardians, my aunties who took care of me since birth. I grew up without my parents. I remember telling myself, I'll show them. One day they're going to regret leaving a son like me who will be rich and successful someday. I'll show them and I'll show you all. So I grew up with a deep motivation to succeed, hatred, and vengeance. I hated my parents. I hated everything I didn't have and wondered, why me? What did I ever do to them? They were so selfish and thought only of themselves. I swore if ever I had a family, I'd make sure I'd be different. I was about 8 years old when my dad petitioned me to live in the U.S. with my stepmom and my siblings. I was second at the top in the entire school. I was the president of the Filipino club. I was a varsity wrestler at freshman year. But I was forced to drop out of school when I ran away from home. I was 14 years old then. I found comfort in my Filipino gang that I joined, who became my family. Though I knew there was a God, I just didn't know where to find Him. In 1989, I came back to the Philippines to study, but instead I partied and eventually got a girl pregnant. I ran off back to the U.S., where I started working for a door-to-door company at 15 years old illegally. At 16, I was promoted to becoming a sales manager, a national sales manager at 17, and an international manager at 18. In 1992, I was sent to the Philippines to start our company's operation in Manila. It was also the time when I joined the Sales Training Institute, whose clients are the top 300 corporations in the country. I was recognized as the country's youngest motivational speaker at that time and trainer, with expertise in sales and management. In 1993, I got married to Cynthia, the woman I got pregnant in 1989. I said my vows and I promised to take good care of my son Gio, but I did not really care much for them. I just wanted to look good so people would not say negative things about me. I really wanted to be a good father to Gio, but the problem was I didn't have a clue, for I never saw a good father, much more I become a husband. I was always centered on myself, being a victim of some sort, and honestly, I didn't care what anybody says about my decisions or actions. I didn't really care what God think of what I did. Much later, I was pirated by a multi-billion property developer here in the Philippines, where I became a vice president for sales. I made my millions from all the properties I sold in my team. Then, we had our second child, Yves. Again, I promised to be a better father and husband, but I failed again. Often, I was thinking, I deserve to be happy. I never experienced teenage life. I made my money. I can spend it any which way I can. And so selflessly, I did. In 2002, my wife Cynthia accepted Jesus as her Lord and Savior and started attending Bible studies. This gave me more free time to indulge in all my vices while she was busy and away. Eventually, we got separated. And because I couldn't live alone, I got involved with whoever, whenever, wherever. I had to take care of my needs since she had our kids, a family who supported her, and she had a God. I didn't. But eventually, I begged Cynthia to take me back and promised to accept her Jesus and to attend a small group in her previous church. This was when my journey of becoming a true fake Christian began. You know, the kind that goes to Sunday church every Sunday, but don't even read the Bible. I don't even obey the Bible. I just pretend I'm a Christian. Life became worse, even if I tried to project as it's getting better. Everything was always about me. I got into heavier pornography. I gambled more. Extreme immorality that resulted to me having 16 different children from 16 different women, aside from my 6 legitimate children with my wife Cynthia. So I have 22 children all in all. Yeah. Worst of all, I wasn't just a heavy smoker, but became a serious drug addict. A serious drug addict. I continued to pretend being a born again, but I got burned again and again and again. My selfishness led me to ruins. My selfishness led me to a path of misery and pain. I completely lost my wife. I lost my children. I lost my career. I lost my direction. I lost everything because of my selfishness. With nowhere to turn to, I tried looking for God. I started reading the Bible. But God's sovereignty, well, God works in a very weird way. Last 2014, He allowed me to be incarcerated. I was imprisoned for a crime I did not commit. I was convicted for failing to attend a hearing back in 1998. It was in the New Bilibid prison where I was incarcerated. I met Colonel Jun Borromeo, a CCFer and a JLC student who was serving time. Together with another pastor, he fathered me as his spiritual son and guided me accordingly. While in prison, we studied theology in an off-campus Bible school. When we graduated, we preached and ministered to thousands of inmates day in and day out. It was in prison where the CCF GLC team visited us, gave us materials, and introduced GLC 1, which we then taught in all the dormitory cells. It was in prison where our God took away all my selfishness and restored my whole family. All my broken relationships with my wife, my children, my dad, my mom, and my half-sisters, all had been restored. Like what happened to Joseph in Genesis 50:20, God meant everything for good. Even my imprisonment was meant for good. For it was in prison where I experienced God's grace, forgiveness, and transforming power. It wasn't prison that changed me. It wasn't my wife that changed me. It was actually Jesus' selflessness that changed me and took my selfishness away. By God's grace, I was released last February of this year. Today, my family and I are faithfully attending services here at CCF Maine. I now have my own D group. I attend and accountable to my D group leader, and I'm privileged to lead a D group in Makati and Taguig. My name is Gary Zaldy Galvez. I was once a selfish and a very true fake Christian. Now, a true child of God. To Him be all the praise and glory.